It is great seeing you too. You know, it's funny. You caught me by surprise with the Rolling Stone shirt. I don't know why I'm surprised, but you popped up on the screen, and I was like, of course, he's wearing the Rolling Stone shirt today.
No, so I'm thrilled to be here. I'm honored to be here. When I look at the list of guests that you've had on here, Paul, it's just been unbelievable. And to think that you asked me to be on, I feel really grateful for it. So thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure to have you on. I think that more people need to hear from you. One of the main reasons I had you on is because I think you have, despite being so tight in an industry and all in, it's been your livelihood for many years, generational dealer. Now you're passing it on to the third generation, your son David, who's been running the store. I think you've maintained a very good broad perspective on what consumers want and what experience should be, and I would consider a very practical wisdom in how people think and how they emotionally process things, and you've woven that into every element of your store and how you serve people. And I want that perspective really to be what we talk about today. So to start the conversation, could you just give us, a 1 or 2 minute background on your experience as a dealer and, what your store now that you've sold a number of them and now what you're operating now and kind of what the current condition is in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, which is where you're located.
Yeah. So in coming into the chat, I heard the tail end of the chat, the chat before me, and the guy saying, "Well, get comfortable with where things are today." And that's the antithesis of really how we've built our organization, is that there is no comfort, because what's normal today is not going to be normal tomorrow and is not going to be normal for the future. I followed Dave Spizak, I follow Brian, and what guys like this have done, they've always said, well, how do we get out in front of the consumer? How do we be ahead of what's coming next? So we sort of look at, things, there's what's predictable and what's foreseeable. And what's predictable and what's foreseeable is we didn't know that there was an invisible enemy, but there was going to be a paradigm shift in how consumers wanted to do business with us. This was just forced on us, but it was predictable and foreseeable. So, you look at the guys before me, we've been picking up and delivering cars for 30 years. We've been delivering cars, showing cars to people's houses for 3 years. So the reality of it is there's nothing new to us. So we're in a position today saying, yeah, this is all great, this is all good, this is what people should have been doing. The reality of it is we want to build an organization that's nimble enough to say, what is it we should be doing next? Where do we think the consumer is going next?
That's really great. And thinking like there's getting comfortable with the change and getting comfortable with constant change is really where you're advising people to be, and it's kind of where you live. You said something, so I know a little bit about your business and your organization and kind of your desire to let's go to them. No one really wants to come into my store. And Peter has one of the most unique stores I've ever been in. When you walk in through the front door, you're actually in this large glass silo, and it's got a koi pond under it. So you're walking across this glass bridge, and you're like, oh, can I walk on this? And there's koi, and it's really pretty and tranquil. And so you have, you can get a latte, a handcrafted latte with, Peter's logo, embossed in it. So it's like this really crazy, beautiful dealership. Yet you encourage people not to come in. Can you tell me about that juxtaposition?
So the juxtaposition is, and I think it's perfect. It's perfect for the time that we're in right now. Is I think, you and I had a conversation last week, and I said to you, personal safety is the new luxury. And what do I mean by that? Is that, first of all, people are just scared to do anything right now. Tremendous societal anxiety. And before we got to this place, people were anxious about buying a car. They didn't trust the dealer. They didn't like a dealer. So there was two components to it. We decided to pick up and deliver our customers' cars a long time ago because, number one, you can't talk to someone that says, I love to go get my car serviced. So how are we ever going to do service? People don't like it. The second part of that is the time that was involved for people to come to us, to wait for us, or come to us, take a loaner car, leave and go back, and then come back at the end of the day and take their car. And literally it would take an hour if you live 15 minutes away. So that made no sense in terms of saying, why would we make people do that? Let's give people more time and make it easier to do business. And as things evolved, what evolved for us is we came to the conclusion, first of all, consumers' single biggest asset was their time. We gradually did a pivot away from that. That's no longer necessarily the case. I would say the people's single biggest asset is their time, with the caveat, it's the emotional energy that it takes to spend that time. And if you look at the time, the time that we're in right now, people were forced to be home, and it varied all over the country. But for the most part, people were forced to be at home. And if you look at where online consumption went, it went through the roof. People who had, bought things online before were now buying more things online. The paradigm shift that happened is the people that I relied upon to get my Charmin toilet paper no longer had Charmin toilet paper. So I figure, well, I better get something other than Charmin because I may not be able to get toilet paper. So then they took the second best, and they overpaid and probably paid more money than they paid for their Charmin. Oh, and by the way, you can't get it today. You can get it, a week from today, and people still jumped on it. I think the understanding is where does that come from? Where that comes from is I listened to a podcast in this time by a gentleman by the name of John Barry, who wrote a book on the 1918 pandemic. And what he said about the pandemic is crisis in the United States, people rally around the flag. One exception, it's pandemics. People are out for themselves and to save their own hide. So we're not rallying. So what's happened is we've gotten used to going online in this climate now and saying, okay, well, I'll just take whatever I can get whenever I can get it. You fast forward it, the government has really mandated consumers can't come into my showroom. So everybody's rushing and saying, how do we get this quick bolt on? How do we do online? How do we do online sales? How do we do online pickup and delivery? Well, this was predictable and foreseeable, was to make things convenient and easy. So now when, somebody gets a bolt on to sell cars online, are they getting a different experience than they got in the showroom? And the reality of it is, I suggest they're probably not. We haven't simplified it. We haven't made it easy for them. I look at the Carvanas of the world, and everybody thinks that, they're these great geniuses. And I say, well, what's so smart about Carvana? They make you spend $20,000, $30,000, then they'll deliver you the goods and see if you like it. Well, why wouldn't you just show people the goods up front and send somebody out with the car, and if they like the car, we transact right there. And we don't have to do it necessarily using a traditional salesperson. We can use technology specialists. We can do it a lot cheaper, and we can bring cars back and forth to them. But the level of service that people are used to getting today online is a business.